All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's panel. My name is Jorge Acosta-Palmer, and I'm the director of the Statewide Training Initiative with Florida Legal Services. We're excited to have you join us today for Maximizing Pro Bono Impact, a panel discussion with Florida legal aid leaders. Before I introduce our panel, I do want to go through some quick housekeeping announcements. This training is being recorded. You're going to receive a copy of this recording from Zoom within 24 hours. We'll also post it on YouTube, so if you are unable to register, you're going to be able to find it on YouTube and share it with others that were unable to register. The training was approved by the Florida Bar for 2 General CLE credits, 1 Technology CLE, and 1 Ethics CLE. So towards the end of the webinar, I'll announce the CLE code. I actually have it in one of the slides. I'll share these slides as well. If for whatever reason you miss it, I will include that CLE code in the email that goes out from Zoom, and I will also include it in the YouTube descriptions. Closed captions are enabled for anybody who needs them. So if you have any issues with accessibility, feel free to let me know via chat or email. And questions, if you have any questions, we have the chat. We also have the Q&A feature. I'll try to monitor it. And as it comes in, if you want to share comments or you have questions, I'll make sure that our panelists are here. So I wanted to bring up that this training is being co-hosted by the Public Interest Law section of the Florida Bar, or PILS. So if you're not familiar with PILS, I highly encourage you to take a look at their website. We have a lot of great substantive law work groups and committees. We co-host a lot of the CLEs with them, and there are a lot of networking and community building opportunities. So one thing about PILS, if you're a private attorney, there's a great opportunity to join. It's only $55 a year. You have a lot of these CLE opportunities available. And if you're a law student, we actually changed the bylaws where now it's actually free for law students. So if you're a law student and you want to start getting connected to public interest law section attorneys, we have a lot of civil legal aid attorneys in the section. It's a great opportunity for you to connect and start learning different topics. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel. I'm actually going to start by excusing Andrea Ortiz. Unfortunately, she was unable to make it today. Hopefully, Andrea, you feel better. I know Andrea really wanted to be here today. She was really excited, but Andrea, I promise you, you're not off the hook. I will reach out to you eventually, and we'll do another webinar. We'll come up with another webinar or opportunity for you to share your expertise and your passion and everything that it is pro bono. So our two panelists that are here today. I'm going to start with Kimberly Rommel-Enright. She is a supervising attorney. Sorry, my screen died on my end, so let me share the screen again. Sorry for that technical difficulty, and we are back. Okay, so Kimberly is a supervising attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County, where she has served since '92. She has dedicated her career to family law and pro bono work, handling adoption, custody, guardianship, and LGBTQ related cases, while also supervising major projects, including the Pro Bono Project. Kimberly is deeply active in the Florida Bar's Family Law section, and she serves on the Executive Council and co-chairs the Legislation Committee. She has been widely recognized for her leadership and service, including receiving the 2025 Family Law Section Visionary Award and multiple other state honors. This short bio that I have for Kimberly doesn't do her justice, so I actually included her full bio in the materials that I'll share with you later. You are going to be really impressed with the amount of sections and organizations that Kimberly is a part of, and all the awards that she's won deservedly. So when I saw her resume, I was very impressed. So thank you for being here, Kimberly. Our other panelist is Samantha Howell. Samantha is the Pro Bono Director at Three Rivers Legal Services, where she focuses on building and strengthening partnerships with law firms, corporate legal departments, and solo practitioners to expand access to justice in North Florida. In this role, she also supports affirmative litigation through co-counseling with the private bar and develops programs to recruit, train, and manage pro bono volunteers. With a career dedicated to advancing social justice, Samantha has worked extensively in areas including poverty law, domestic violence and women's rights, prisoners' rights, civil rights, and civil liberties and public benefits. And I go on and on and on, Samantha. You've done it all. She is also an experienced public speaker and trainer with a passion for program development, event planning, and remote supervision of legal teams. Samantha is admitted to practice in New York, the Southern District of New York, Florida, and the Southern District of Florida. So welcome to our speakers. This is where I usually pass it off, but this is a panel. So I'm going to keep on talking. So what I'm going to do to get things started, I want to, now that we met our panel, I want to kind of get a feel for who our audience is. So to start it off, feel free to put in the chat what brings you to this webinar, whether it's the learning opportunity, CLE, whatever brings you to this webinar. Feel free to use the chat to share with the rest of the audience on our panel. And I will also launch a poll so we also get to know you a little bit better. The poll is going to have multiple questions. Let me go ahead and launch it. The first set of questions, it's going to ask you if you work for legal aid, if you're a private attorney, or if you're a law student. Then there will be follow-up questions that are only applicable. One of them will be only for the civil legal aid staff. We want to know if you're in the pro bono department or not. And if you're not in civil legal aid and you're a private attorney or a law student or somebody else, we would like to know. If you are already volunteering, if you're looking for volunteer opportunities, so this will give us an idea. So I see in the chat we have learning and hearing from other professionals in the field as one of the answers to what brought you to this webinar. So let's give everybody a few seconds to answer. We have Cindy. Hi, Cindy, with Coast to Coast Legal Aid. Right. So let's give everybody a few more seconds. I see the answers coming in. We have a few pro bono volunteers in the house. Like it. Hello, Nicole from Community Legal Services. I'm Amarilis with Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. All right, so we have over 70% participation. Let's give it a few more seconds. And let's end the poll and share the results. So we have 54% of the attendees are civil legal aid LSC funded. We have 34% are civil legal aid not LSC funded, and we have two private attorneys for 4%, and we have four under others. So it seems like mostly we have civil legal aid folks in here, but with a good mix of LSC funded and non LSC funded. So right. So I think that gives us a pretty good idea of who our audience is. We're seeing people say hi in the chat, introducing themselves. So I'm going to stop sharing and move back to our panel. So let's start with regional pro bono trends and challenges. So the questions that we're kind of putting out there are, what unique challenges do you encounter in your region when it comes to recruiting and retaining pro bono volunteers? How do regional factors impact the types of pro bono cases that are available? So full disclaimer, a lot of the topics that we have will likely overlap. Our speakers are amazing speakers, so I will let them say whatever they want and talk as long as they want because I can't wait to hear their answers on these topics. So who wants to take a stab at this question first, Samantha or Kimberly?
I'll let Samantha go
Kimberly,
first.
oh,
I was going to do the
Samantha,
same. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jorge, for having us. And Kim, it's so wonderful to see you as always. Thanks for doing this with us. And welcome, everybody. I hope you get a lot out of this. So Three Rivers Legal Services covers 17 counties across North Central Florida. In the map that you're looking at, that includes the entire 3rd, 8th, and 4th judicial circuits and one county in the 7th. So it's a broad swath of counties. And one of the challenges that we have is the lack of attorneys geographically across that area. So if you've never heard of a legal desert, that is generally described as having one attorney per 1,000 residents or fewer. The national average is 4 attorneys per 1,000 residents. In our 17 county area, 10 of our counties are legal deserts. So we have one county that has 3 attorneys, but 10,000 residents. So one of the biggest challenges we have is finding those attorneys where they are needed, but not just by county, right? It's even more drilled down from that. So I'm going to use Alachua County as an example. Alachua County is 969 square miles. We have a population of 143,000 people when you exclude Gainesville. Gainesville is 65 square miles within that, so a smallish amount, less than 10%, but has a population of over 148,000. So 51% of Alachua County is in Gainesville proper. Alachua County has 1,004 attorneys, which comes out to about 3.5 attorneys per 1,000, but 905 of them are in Gainesville proper. So in Gainesville, we have 6.75 attorneys, 6.75 attorneys per 1,000 residents, while the rest of Alachua County has 0.69 attorneys per 1,000 residents. So having attorneys where they're needed is really important, and not just are they there physically, but can they get there, right? We have counties, for example, that especially after back-to-back hurricanes last year had no power, they had no internet. So if we couldn't get the attorneys there physically, we couldn't provide legal services in some ways. I live in High Springs, which is 22 miles north of Gainesville. There's no public transportation, and I cannot get a ride share to go back and forth. So if I don't have a car, I can't get to work, which means I can't see an attorney, I can't get to court, I can't get to the services that are available for Alachua County. So I think when we're talking about legal services, it's very easy to think about there's never enough, but it's not even that there's never enough. It's that there aren't enough in the right places. Our poorest counties, the ones that have the highest rate of poverty in our 17 county area, those rates approach 30%, 25 to 30% in our most impoverished counties. Those are also the ones with the least number of attorneys. So our challenge as pro bono coordinators, directors, managers is not just leveraging what we have in the area, but also thinking creatively about how we can bring people in from outside of that area, having Gainesville attorneys or Jacksonville attorneys provide services in the Third Judicial Circuit, or even leveraging large law firms, corporate counsel, and attorneys in other parts of the state who have those unique services that would be valuable. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim with that. But hopefully that gets people thinking, yay, numbers.
Thank you again also for being here. And I will echo exactly what Samantha has said. I think our greatest issue regionally is we are the 15th Judicial Circuit, and we have a very diverse, large county. We only cover one county, but it is very diverse and very large. So we have the north end, the Jupiter area, which has a lot of wealth in it, south end, which is Boca Raton, which has a lot of wealth in it. Obviously, the eastern border, which is Palm Beach, which has a great deal of wealth in it. And then we have the western area of our county, which is the poorest area, most underserved area in our county. And it is remote, it's rural. It's at least a half an hour to get out there from downtown, can take longer. So we are struggling as well with how do we service that community with the pro bono attorneys. There are maybe 3 attorneys in Belle Glade. And that's that whole western area, the Glades, that whole western area of Palm Beach County. So we too struggle with, we want to get the services out there because there are folks that really, really need our services out there. And how do we do that? Through the pro bono department. We have a lot of attorneys that would love to do that, but they would want the clients to come to them, and therein also lies the problem. We don't have much of a public transit system in Palm Beach County at all. We've got a bright line that goes up and down, but nothing that goes west. You take the road and you drive out there, and a lot of our clients don't have transportation to come in to get the services, even in our office that's centrally located. So as an organization, as a whole, we struggle with that. We've always had a presence in the Glades. We will continue to have a presence in the Glades through the office. But for us, that has become in our pro bono department. One of our main focuses right now is trying to work out strategies to bring more services to those individuals out in the western part of our county, which is not as large of an area as Samantha's programs cover, but it is for us within our county, remote and rural, and difficult to service the most needy people who require our services. So we have the same situation as well.
It's very, like, I don't think I've ever heard that term legal desert, but it's spot on. And it's really kind of interesting to see the contrast where you have one legal aid that covers one county, one area, but still have the same challenges with that another legal aid that covers such a wide area. And, working with other legal aids, I know it's a similar struggle. Presence, transportation is a big issue. Kimberly, you just mentioned the Bright Line, and I take it all the time, but you're right. It's just north to south, south to north. It doesn't go east to west. It is a big challenge. So
And I
if
will add
anybody
on to
wants to
that
share,
too. I'm sorry, I just want to add on to that too. The legal desert concept is just attorneys. It doesn't even get into civil legal aid attorneys, right? When we start talking about civil legal aid attorneys per low income resident, the numbers are far more stark. So that's the other challenge too. And this is why pro bono is so incredibly important. The vast majority of admitted attorneys who are eligible to practice and in good standing with the Florida bar are in private practice. So that's why it's so important to understand where these concepts intersect and how we can use them to leverage that private bar to say, here's where we, I know you want to work in, X in Tampa. I'm going to pick on Tampa because they're not on the panel, but I know you want to work in Tampa, but we really need you in the boonies. How can we get those cases to you or you to those cases?
Yeah, that's a great example. And I was going to ask you about the data. Like, so where do you usually go for this to find this type of data to identify the needs?
Well, fortunately, Florida has a really great attorney directory through the Florida Bar. So I go there to find out how many admitted attorneys who are eligible to practice are in each county. You can also search by city. And if an attorney has indicated their area of practice, that's really helpful. As I mentioned before, we don't always have the attorneys we need where we need them. And that's not just numbers, it's also subject matter. In some of our counties, we have no attorneys who advertise that they do family law. As anyone who touches legal aid knows, family law is a lot of cases. And if you touch pro bono, they are some of the most difficult cases to refer out, especially for full representation. But we have entire counties who don't have family law attorneys. So part of it is using that data from the directory to identify where your resources are. Maybe I don't have an attorney in Madison County, but I have some in Taylor County, or maybe I can scooch on over to Leon County and find somebody there. And then I pulled data from the National Institutes of Health, and I think it's World Population, who does population data and census data. And then I pulled information from the US Census Bureau. So that's big for me. About every 6 months to 8 months, I kind of reset all of those numbers. I look at the poverty percentages, and it just gives me a sense of, are we still putting our eggs in the right basket, or do we need to think more creatively about how we're delivering our services?
Yeah, I would echo
Kimberly, I
that.
was going to ask you.
Yeah, we utilize the Florida Bar information broken down by the actual cities, because we do have some attorneys who work and have offices in the almost western part of the county, kind of more western, which is our Wellington, Royal Palm area. And so sometimes we can arrange for clients to get into them because they're closer, they're much closer to the Glades than downtown is. So we break down that information by city as well, so that we can see who is practicing on the western side of the county, not quite to the Glades, but closer. And we utilize that as well in recruitment and sending out the cases to assigning the cases to the attorneys as well.
All right. So let's move on to the next topic. I actually have a few flyers here. Samantha, tell us about these flyers and these events.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight a couple things that we're working on here. But my staff is here, including my HR director. Hi. Uh, so I'm just going to throw out a few things that we've been doing, because one of the questions that we were asked to consider is types of cases that are impactful and communications. And these are a couple of my little areas that I enjoy so much. So expungement clinics. We are doing one November 7th, obviously, but we've also done a very successful one in Duval County. And these are just really kind of feel-good clinics. Attorneys see the benefit of their work after a couple hours if they stay on for the case. The cases last a while, but it's very little work because there's about a 3 to 4 month delay for certificates of eligibility. And then most courts don't even have hearings. So it's very easy to get attorneys in. So if you're here from a legal aid organization, which a lot of you are, expungement clinics are a great foot in the door. You can train volunteers in 30 minutes to 45 minutes on how to fill out the application and eligibility. So these are both client-facing or community-facing brochure or flyers, but I also kind of rejig these so that I have them as recruitment flyers. But we use different kind of communications for those purposes. With our expungement clinics, including the one in Duval, which Kritzia, who is on here, coordinated, great job, Kritzia. We actually had the sheriff's department, the state attorney, the clerk's office, the PD's office. I mean, everybody was there. We had, I think, 20 volunteers, law students. It was just a really great event. And at the end of the day, we met 74 clients and processed over 35 applications. So if you're looking for ways to get folks involved, expungement clinics, I think, are really easy lifts. Similarly, I think advanced directive clinics are very easy lifts. Those are things you can train attorneys on really easily, and they don't take a lot of time. So that's part of that expungement process. Plus, it's everywhere, right? There's people everywhere have expungement issues. I want to mention the driver's license one because this is a little bit more difficult, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about innovative solutions for recruitment, and I'm going to just be honest, failures in retention, because this is a real thing. When we started our driver's license project 5-6 years ago, we had 15, and I say we collectively, this is a collective Alachua County we, not a Three Rivers we or a Samantha we. But when Alachua started this 5 or 6 years ago, we had about 15 volunteer attorneys. Since then, almost all of them have stopped volunteering. And consistently the feedback we got was, this is too complicated. It's too much. And so part of the challenge we've had, because tremendous number of Floridians have driver license suspension issues, is trying to make this more tangible. And so when we get down a little bit more, I'm going to tie back into this about how we've changed the way we approach referrals for the purposes of driver's license cases in order to increase engagement from volunteers, because it's been very hard to keep them invested in those cases because they're so complicated. But thank you for sharing them, Jorge. I really appreciate it.
I included these flyers in the materials folder that I'll share with everybody. It's going to go out via email. I'll try to drop it into the chat as well. And another thing, follow each other on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. That's usually how I find out about these great events. I try to share these with the statewide training initiative. So if any other organization has events like these, make sure to share them on social media. You can email me and I'll pass the word around through other channels. So always happy to share information about these great events. So, all right, so let's go to the next topic, which is really related to the previous topic. These are all overlap in some sort of way, but let's talk about innovative solutions for volunteer recruitment and retention. So, can you share some innovative approaches you've implemented to encourage pro bono participation in your region? What have been the most effective ways to retain long-term pro bono volunteers? So, Kimberly, you want to take this one first, or?
Sure. I'm not quite sure how innovative our solutions have been at this point, but I think one of the things that has really helped us is to have more staff dedicated to the process of recruitment. When you have folks who are focused specifically on reaching out and recruiting attorneys to do pro bono work, that helps a great deal. So one of the things that has helped us increase our recruitment and our case placement has been having dedicated staff dedicate specifically to that. And they have some great ideas and some new things we're doing. One of the other things that I think has been critical for our program has been our involvement in the legal community, especially through the voluntary bar associations. I have found over the years of doing this that sometimes having relationships is the best way to bring more people in and to send those cases out. So all of us on the staff, there are four attorneys, I'm thinking, and we are all involved in various voluntary bar associations, and there are a multitude of them in Palm Beach County. So there's some overlap. Some of us are involved in one and not another, but we try to cover all the voluntary bar associations, and not just, go to the meetings or go to the lunches. We get involved in the leadership of those organizations, creating those relationships, which is out there talking about, hey, what kind of law do you do? Wouldn't you love to do a pro bono case? And we actually do a lot of recruitment through those means, as well as building relationships in which to send those cases out to those folks. As was mentioned earlier, I'm involved on the statewide level with the family law section, and that has helped significantly with me with creating relationships in Palm Beach County with the family lawyers here. As Samantha mentioned, family law is one of the high priorities for a lot of our legal aids. And so it allows me to kind of cultivate the firms and the culture within those family law firms, to promote pro bono, and then to have them come volunteer for us, and we send the cases to them. So that has been really important for us. Having a very strong circuit committee, pro bono circuit committee, with voluntary bar involvement in that committee has been a great method for us for recruitment. We do our campaign every year. That's not terribly innovative, but the follow-up to that is what we're starting to do now. For instance, this year we're going to target the firms, again, with information from the Florida Bar. We'll target the firms who have never done anything with legal aid, not sponsored anything, not done the cases, not participated in our organization in any way, shape, or form. And we're going to target them this year specifically and go out, do outreach to them, go out and do a dog and pony show, as I call it, for the firms to do recruitment that way as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing, some new things that we are doing. And for us, it really is a lot about recruit, support, and recognize. And that's how we keep people engaged for the long term. And once they get the hook, a lot of our pro bono attorneys just stay with us throughout their careers, and that's great. And we want to get them, which is why we have a large presence in the young lawyers section locally, and the young lawyers division, is to get them when they're starting out their careers, and create that interest in pro bono and that dedication to it and our program. And as well as doing the pro bono cases, building those relationships with the voluntary bar associations benefits our office as a whole, because they also will do fundraisers for us and bring in people to support us in other ways as well. So I'm a big proponent of the voluntary bar associations. With that, I don't know how innovative that is, but with that, I'll pass it over to Samantha and see what she's got.
Yeah, same. I'm not sure there's innovative approaches. The best tried and true is exactly what Kim said: relationships, relationships, relationships. And perhaps a smidge of shame, guilt, bribery, but mostly it's just having good relationships. And I'm fortunate to have two wonderful coordinators that work with me in a para. But I am the only attorney, and so some of our bar associations don't have non-attorney memberships. But we've worked with them and said, "Hey, I'm going to be the attorney member, but can my coordinator come on my behalf and participate and table?" And they've been able to do that. One bar is like, we will allow, we haven't had it before in a long time, but we're going to allow, non-attorney members. And so leveraging those relationships is really helpful. I think for me, and I think this is similar, kind of what Kim said, is you want them to have a good experience. I want repeat shoppers. And so, your first couple times, I'm going to coddle, I'm going to hold your hand, I'm going to make it as wonderful an experience as possible, because I want you to keep coming back. And I've started asking attorneys, can you bring one person in next year? Like, can you bring in one friend to a clinic, bring one colleague, co-counsel on one pro bono case, or mentor somebody on, just helping our diehards recruit as well. And that's been effective. We've had new folks coming to our clinics. We have, an attorney who's branching out solo, and, we're helping, identify areas of practice. And so they're using us as references and resources as well in their professional careers. And I think those relationships are really important. I will say, for, practically speaking, the most effective way that I've ever recruited attorneys is on-site pressure. So I used to, when I did prisoners' rights litigation, I would go to these firms and I would do a 1 to 2 hour brown bag luncheon on how to challenge disciplinary proceedings. And this was back, if you've ever done prisoners work, it's all by paper because they don't have computers. So I would bring down physical files, manila envelopes stuffed with paperwork, cassette tapes, VHS tapes, and I would sit those out on the table, and I would say, we're going to do a training, and then I want you all to take these cases. And, I might have 7 or 8 attorneys, and they may take 2 cases so they could work in groups, but they always came back because, but that kind of on-site pressure, I think, is also very effective in putting faces to it. And that was one of the benefits of bringing those files. We've gotten away from that because, especially post-COVID, this is how we do things. We do things virtually. But it's something else to be said when I can bring in a picture of the client and show it to you and tell you their story face to face, and you can see my body language and I can read yours a little bit better. I just think those types of personal interactions are always going to be the best. So I'm not sure about innovation, but tried and true, 100%.
So I wanted to ask, there's something Kimberly said about, I think it was recruit, support, and recognition. So I wanted to ask about recognition specifically when it comes to retaining pro bono volunteers. So can you share some examples of how recognition has been effective, different ways that you've used that tactic?
So we have, for many, many years, we had a gala each year, and it was the Pro Bono Recognition Evening, where it was served as a fundraiser for legal aid, but it was also an event at which we recognized the pro bono attorneys who went above and beyond in our community. We had a number of different awards. We would give out 11 or 12 big awards. During the course of that evening. That has transitioned now. The 15th Judicial Circuit Pro Bono Committee has taken over the awards part of that, the recognition part of that evening. So our office now does just a regular gala, and we do a Pro Bono recognition event in conjunction with the 15th Judicial Circuit Pro Bono Committee. But it's the same idea. It's having the lawyers come in. We recognize certain categories of awards, and a change based on, the service of the year before. Could be family law, real property, immigration, whatever it is. We give those awards, we publish it with the bar, we have all kinds of dignitaries come and speak. It's a really, really, really nice event, very well received, very well attended, and folks really feel good about that recognition. I think that encourages them. I think most of our pro bono attorneys, of course, do it really out of the goodness of their heart. I don't think they do it for the recognition, but it doesn't hurt to be recognized. And that makes people feel good when you call out their name and say, good job, great job. We really appreciate what you do. We also, as Samantha knows, we also have a statewide recognition program, the PIN project, as we call it at the FPBCA, Florida Pro Bono Coordinators Association. We've been doing that for a number of years now. And each program has a little bit of a different take on how we do that, but it is a program by which I can talk about how my office utilizes it, is that at the end of the year, we calculate everybody's hours for the year. For us, it's how many, what attorneys closed cases that year, how many hours they put in on those cases. We tally all their hours up for everything that they did for that year. And then we have gold, silver, and bronze pins. I mean, the pins are all the same, but there's a bronze level, silver, and gold. So we give pins according to what level of service you have done, up to 20 to 49, 50 to 99, and then 100 or over. They get special recognition. They get a letter from a personalized letter from the Supreme Court, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Florida, recognizing their work. The other attorneys who get the silver, bronze, and gold can get a generic letter from the Supreme Court Justice, just, hey, you did a great job. We really appreciate you. Again, we have that as part of a ceremony, the bigger ceremony, and that really, I think, is another kind of feel-good thing. There are other ways of recognition. I know some of the other programs, Samantha, I think, does some other things as well, but it's important. We've started trying to, now that we have more staff, which makes a big difference again, we are able to follow up personally with every attorney who takes a case and closes it. We do a nice thank you letter. Thank you for taking this case. We recognize our pro bono attorneys who get certified with the Florida Bar, who get special recognition. We like to send them thank you notes, handwritten. I mean, in our digital age, which is great and has allowed us to do a lot of things, it still means a lot when you get a letter in the mail that's signed personally. Our whole staff will sign it. Thank you or congratulations. Just that personal touch of recognizing people, not just for their pro bono work, but for their other accomplishments as well, I think makes a difference, and it makes people feel good and helps them to keep coming back for more. Samantha?
Yeah, we, kind of back up to the top about the different regions and the regional differences. We do different things in each of our areas. So in the 4th Judicial Circuit, we have a big presentation of the pins, which is the pins that Kim talked about. And we've created this sort of judicial gauntlet. Basically, this year we had 25 judges come, and everybody stands up and walks down and shakes their hands and get personalized thank yous from all the judges, federal and state and local. And then we've done a slideshow that has, pro bono hero. It has their name and picture. And I catch a lot of attorneys taking a picture when theirs pops up. They really like that. So that's been really effective. We try to put things in bar news, and have them recognized at local events. And the Third Circuit, in years past, we've made baskets because we don't have as many volunteers, and so kind of that personalized thank you is a little bit more doable. I'm the same way with handwritten notes, so each year we do handwritten thank you notes, and I sign them. My coordinator in the Third Circuit, signs them. We take them out to Jacksonville so that Kritzia can handwrite them. She claimed that it gave her carpal tunnel last year. It did not. And she's going to have more this year. But like, that's a big thing for me as well. And then, depending on where you are, I've had some really great and fun different types of recruitment or engagement and retention. In New York, one of the things that we used to do is our state senator would actually do proclamations honoring our recipients, and that was really respected and well received. And he would come and present them and read them at our ceremony. So I think, thinking creatively about what would be impactful for your volunteers is important. Most of our volunteers aren't in it for the recognition, and some of them actually really don't want the recognition. And so also being receptive to that and responsive to that, if they say they don't want it, trust that. And find ways maybe to personally thank them as opposed to publicly thank them. So I think having different opportunities are also very helpful.
Yeah, those are great examples. And kind of going back to the recruitment, you mentioned something, Samantha, earlier about luncheons, and I think that's not innovative at all, but I think it's tried and tested, right? I think food brings everybody together. So I don't know, like any like ideas or examples where you've used settings like whether it's a food or bar to bring people together and recruit.
Yeah, and I apologize for folks who don't know me. I lived in New York for 12 years and I've been in Florida for 6. So some of my examples are from New York, but we used to do happy hour public interest happy hours, and we had a little tavern that had 50-cent wings and half off pints on Wednesday nights. And so that was a time for attorneys, people who were interested, to come and learn about public interest and pro bono. And that was always a fun time. You could do things around trivia and get trivia teams together and go out and do that. Because again, it's the relationship building. And, I joke that as a pro bono manager, you're a serial first dater, right? You're constantly asking people about their preferences and who's going to pick up the tab, and do you drive to me? Do I drive to you? But you don't start off asking to get married. That's not the first question. And so a lot of times with recruitment, the first question is not, will you take the case? The first question is, what are you interested in? How can I help you support my program? And so building those relationships through fun activities like bowling and things like that are great ways to recruit and retain because of that relationship building. So I think it's just important. It's going to vary by locality. Um, but luncheons can be fun. But like, I went on a kayaking trip recently up in the Third Judicial Circuit. We had a kayaking trip at a local park, and that was a great way to meet new attorneys that I'd never met before, build those relationships. So I think part of the big thing is just stepping away from the office sometimes and thinking about, when you meet people and you get excited to talk to them and you want to hear from them, what are the settings that allow that? And can we recreate that for our volunteers so that they are excited when we call and not like, oh my God, it's Samantha again. That's not the reaction we want them to have.
I'll piggyback on that a little bit because I think that's interesting when you were saying, do fun activities. That's a lot of what we do with the voluntary bars, because a lot of the voluntary bars, so it's not us necessarily planning it, but we partake of fun events, like they do axe throwing and they do putt golf and they do all these things. And we hear all the time, oh, you guys, you work so hard. You had to go to the happy hour and, throw axes, and well, you guys had fun. But we're always there, like Samantha said, we're always there talking to people and making friends and building relationships. And while it doesn't seem overtly like recruiting, that's not how you start, like Samantha said. You start by going and having fun with people and getting to know them. And the more they see you, the more you talk about different things, and that's how you lead into that. But again, the voluntary bars are a great source of that kind of fun activity, at least in our area. They do a lot of fun things. The luncheons are great, but they have a lot of fun activities that we all participate in as well, mostly my staff. So I
Right,
second
and
that.
it's interesting. You were mentioning how having a lot of staff really helps, and we all have different interests. I'm terrible at trivia, but I'm down to do anything sport related, particularly like soccer. So maybe having diverse staff, could always be helpful when you want to set people to these type of activities. So let me make sure I move on to the next topic because I know we have a lot of topics, but these have been great examples, and I'm learning a lot personally, so I'm loving this. So let's talk about technology and partnerships for pro bono success. So how has technology changed the way you manage pro bono cases and engage volunteers? What role do partnerships with external organizations play in the success of your pro bono programs? And I'm going to actually ask another question for both of you, and I'm going to assume both of you use Legal Server, right? Right. So if you're in the audience and you don't know what Legal Server is, that's the case management system that is used throughout, not only in Florida, but every legal aid organization pretty much uses that case management system to track cases and to send referrals as well. So, um, Samantha, you want to take this one first?
Sure. To the first question about technology, I would say it really hasn't had an impact. Part of that's because, 2/3 of my legal career has been working with incarcerated folks who don't have access to technology. And part of it is the most effective way to get anything done is to pick up a phone and call somebody. So, that I don't feel like has had a huge impact. There's little things here and there, case management systems, our Pro Bono Matters website, but I wouldn't say it's been overly significant. For the second part about partnerships with external organizations, I would say, particularly in rural communities, it is essential for getting buy-in, especially. When we go into communities that don't have a history with Three Rivers Legal Services and say, hey, come spend 3 hours with us on Saturday and get free advice from attorneys. People oftentimes don't believe that it's free. They don't believe it's real attorneys. There's not that buy-in, and a lot of people feel like it's scammy. If you work with elderly individuals, a lot of times they won't answer phone numbers they don't recognize. And so if you have a firm like ours with 49,000 extensions, and they're used to getting, they're in Jacksonville, but I'm calling them and I have a 352, they're not going to answer my phone call sometimes. So I think having that buy-in is really important from the local communities. And also it gives you some insight into trends that are happening that maybe you aren't seeing because people aren't coming to you for that issue. An example that I have is, we don't do immigration work at Three Rivers Legal Services. Our sister agency, Jacksonville Area Legal Aid, has an immigration project. But if there's something that's affecting those communities, we may not be the first to see it because they're not coming to us for immigration questions. And so if it's, something's affecting an immigrant community, we just may not be seeing it as clear because they may not be coming to us for other legal issues. And so again, having those connections is really important and knowing what those are. In rural communities, it's largely the churches. And so having good relationships with churches. I'm a big fan of the libraries. I will preach that for my whole life. I use the libraries for everything. But I think, really putting in the time, putting in the legwork, going up to these communities, spending hours, again, making those relationships and building that legitimacy is really important. And there, you can't do it through technology. Not only do people not have access to the internet or have cell phones, it's not always reliable, and you don't build the same relationships.
Kimberly?
So I'll take it from kind of a different angle regarding the technology. I think I'll harp on this one more time. Having additional staff for us, having a dedicated data person has allowed us to really utilize Legal Server in a way that helps us manage the cases as they're going on, manage the volunteers as well, support the volunteers, really able to stay on top of who's current, which of our volunteers are current, which ones are not, providing assistance with cases, really having that person to manage that data has been so helpful for us in Legal Server, as well as then utilizing that with Paladin, which we've been involved with for a long time, the online, Samantha, it's not Pro Bono Matters. Is that the one where folks, we can post cases and attorneys can go onto that website and take those cases. We have now integrated that onto our website because our attorneys in our area were not familiar with the concept of looking for pro bono online. So that was never a great resource for us. But they do use our social media and they do use our website. And so we're sort of trying to guide them a little bit that way. But the technology of being able to then integrate that into our office's website was helpful as well, giving people more opportunities to find ways to volunteer and take cases. We also use social media, I think is super important. We were talking a little bit about that before we started here. Recognition through social media, sometimes opportunities through social media. We have folks in our office, not in my department, who manage that, but we work with them with the website and with the social media to get our message out as well about what we are doing. One of the other things we've been able to utilize technology for is to allow attorneys to volunteer in a virtual capacity. And I know some of the other folks and some of the other programs do that as well with the clinics by having virtual clinics that allow the attorneys to volunteer, not have to leave their office. We do a monthly clinic at the Veterans Hospital here. The Veterans Administration has a big facility here. So our office goes and does a clinic every month at the VA, and we have a pro bono attorney who does family law, who then comes in virtually and talks to people and has appointments at that clinic. So that makes it easier for her to volunteer to do that by having that type of technology available to utilize for those clinics. Partnerships, again, I think Samantha hit it on the head. Partnerships are crucial and critical to what we do. We've been able to, in the past, when there were only 2 of us in the pro bono department, we didn't have the bandwidth to do a lot of clinics. And now we have more people dedicated to doing clinics. So we are actually doing a lot more clinics, and those are being done with relationships with different and partnerships with different organizations. A lot of our voluntary bar associations get involved in those, the Hispanic Bar. We've got the Caribbean Bar Association. We have a lot of different bars, voluntary bars that kind of adopt our clinics and help us to do those. So that's been very helpful in expanding our reach out into the community with the clinics, which we weren't able to do before. So again, the voluntary bar associations, I'll go back to that, are super important for that. We also have partnered with Carrier, which I think I sent you guys a flyer earlier. Carrier Corporation has their facility here in the north end of Palm Beach County. Their legal team is very, as you'll see over here, calling all volunteers. We need your help. So we do Wills on Wheels. We have a big event. We do more than once a year, but we have a big event on the Veterans Day coming up with Carrier, where we and this, I think we probably utilize this on our social media, where we will go into Carrier and we'll do wills for veterans. And so that is it's a wonderful event. We get volunteers from Carrier. We get other pro bono attorneys come in to volunteer at that event as well. And so, Carrier has been a steadfast partner with us in this project and other projects, partnering with firms on specific areas of the law. Greenberg Traurig does our guardianship advocacy cases. They've done all kinds of different specific issue-related types of cases, specific areas of law over the years. We provide the training. They recruit the attorneys in their firms. So the partnerships are important. Partnerships with the judiciary. We have a project we do with our chief judge here in Palm Beach County in the 15th Judicial Circuit that has to do with guardianships and the number of people that we're needing help with at contempt hearings. So he asked us to get involved. We got involved, the reptile section, so that we can help people who can't complete their annual reports to partner with an attorney from the reptile section to get their cases current. One of the attorneys in our program sits on the contempt hearings every month, takes up about half a day, but we sit there and we're available to help with the cases and get the attorneys from the reptile section to work on those cases for us. So we really find that partnerships are crucial and critical.
I would add to that too, thinking, like our driver's license clinics that we do, our partnerships are with the state. So we're working with the clerk's office, the DMV, Department of Revenue, the state attorney, the PD's office. Those have made our clinics really successful because it allows for us to do either one-stop shops, like with our expungement clinics, or we can create opportunities for more holistic services. Next month or December, I'm actually working with one of our pro bono volunteers to train our PD's office on driver's license reinstatement issues. And because they're getting 50 or 60 cases a month through the PD's office, our PD can't handle civil cases. We can't handle criminal cases. So we're going to partner and go and do it all at once, and also advise people on how they can proceed pro se in getting their licenses back. And so I think, I second what Kim says about voluntary bars 100%. But also, if the state's involved in your cases, or if there's, these types of formal entities, work with them, because if you make their lives easier, they're going to make your life easier too. And I really can't overstate how wonderful my experience in working with all the Alachua agencies has been. And they go to clerk trainings and FLHSMV trainings and talk about our reinstatement project. Like, they have become evangelical about it as well. And that's really wonderful too.
I was gonna add, Kimberly mentioned the reptile section. If you're not familiar, that's the real property, probate, and trust law section. We call it the reptile section. They've been really great about volunteering, and offering, and getting their members to actually volunteer and look for pro bono opportunities. We recently, I think it was last year actually, we started a volunteer initiative, CLE series, and they're the ones that help lead that series. And they are making sure to engage all their members. We recently met to discuss Paladin on how they can find opportunities there. But Samantha, you mentioned something that was really interesting, which was some people just like to pick up the phone, right? When you look at strategies, I think you have to think about this as like a buffet, like every option and we need to put it all out there, whether it's start cold calling or it's just posting on Paladin or sending emails. How do you usually handle this? Do you go for all the above, or are you
Yeah.
picky?
Yeah, we try to put all of our cases on Paladin. We are not able to, but we try to put everything on Paladin. So that's the passive recruitment. And then we typically start with emails to attorneys, individualized or personalized emails to attorneys. I don't like blast emails, and I harp on that a lot. So personalized emails to attorneys, and then follow it up with phone calls. As we get to know our volunteers, we know how to work. I have a volunteer who is a diehard, my ride or die in Alachua County, but does not check email to save his life. But I know if I'm going to send him a case, I CC his office manager, because Shirley Rose is going to get it done. So as you get to know your volunteers, you learn how to communicate with them best. Our staff is communicating by text message with our volunteers because that works for some folks. And so I think it really is, not only is it a buffet, it's an all you can eat. You've got to take one of everything and see what works best. But we use both passive and active recruitment strategies, and I think that is a good combination for folks.
Oh, you,
I will
Kimberly.
I will just very quickly say, since you've got my lovely department up on the screen there, one of the things that has been a great help to us are the emeritus attorneys. And you'll see on the front of the picture there towards the right, an older gentleman. That is Mr. Stern, and he's been volunteering every week with us for 15, 20 years. He is amazing. He's gotten all kinds of awards locally and at the state level. So when we took our group picture last week, we were like, Mr. Stern, we're gonna have to do it on a day when you're here. Because he's an unpaid part of our team. But we have really been, Mr. Stern, we have really been fortunate. Again, we have dedicated staff to recruiting and working with the emeritus attorneys and supporting the emeritus attorneys, because they do need, he has his own little space now, and they need support because most of them they're not working anymore. So they don't have an office that they can utilize. So we have to provide that to them, and then the support in the form of paralegal support as well. But definitely, utilize your emeritus attorneys as well.
And if I can tie in what I think Jorge is going to announce in a couple minutes is the next presentation in this series is on the Florida registered paralegals. And that's a great partnership. If you can partner with paralegals who want to volunteer, and then you have emeritus attorneys or attorneys who are solo, but maybe don't want to meet clients in their home or don't have the support staff, partnering them with another volunteer, it's a biggest bang for your buck. So we try to do that with students. We have, we're trying to break more into the paralegal world. But I think that's also something that, we can offer those folks and alleviate any concerns that they have that they're going to be overwhelmed.
We actually have a partnership with the Palm Beach State College here, our local college, community college, what we used to call them in the day, and their paralegal program. So we also utilize folks from the paralegal program. We have an attorney, again, a member of our staff now, who is dedicated to the interns. We get high school, college, law school interns that we utilize in the pro bono program to do research, to do all kinds of things, helping out with the cases we have, helping out the pro bono attorneys. And as well, like Samantha said, the paralegal, that's been very helpful as well. So there's so many different resources available out there and places to partnership with. The schools, and again, has been very helpful on all levels.
And yes, Samantha, you read my mind. That's exactly what I was gonna plug in. I'll share the slide a little bit later. But I also wanted to point out how this is all connecting back to the relationship topic, right? Building relationships and recognition. This pro bono flyer is a great example of that, and how an emeritus attorney is being recognized in this case. So that's it. I'm gonna move on to the next topic, which is kind of overlapping with all the topics that we've discussed, but meeting the evolving needs of communities through pro bono work. How has the focus of pro bono cases shifted to meet the changing needs of vulnerable populations in region? What are some high impact pro bono initiatives you've been involved with recently?
I'll jump in just really quickly. I know we're coming up against time. I think we are seeing a lot more estate planning, probate cases than we were a couple years ago. In part, that's a funding issue, and also building connections with communities that are tied to communities that have heirs property and probate issues. So building those connections with those communities has been really important. And then I think seal and expunge has been a big issue. I pulled some stats. From 2019 to 2022, we were averaging 80 expungement cases a year. We're now averaging about 200 a year. So over the last 3 years. So that's been a big uptick for us. And I think part of it is just interest and engagement in that area. One of the great things about pro bono, for the folks who are not pro bono program managers, but one of the great things about that is if somebody comes to me with an idea and says, I want to do this, I get to try to figure out how to do it. We have a local criminal defense attorney here who says, I will take all of your expungement cases, and he has taken over 30 this year. And that allowed us to expand a project that we hadn't been doing a lot more. So, I think a big thing is paying attention to what your populations need. We do that through needs assessments every few years, but also just listening to your community partners, and then finding out where your volunteers are interested, because if they are there to provide the service, oftentimes the cases are going to follow. It's just a matter of getting into the right communities.
We have found that with the changing world we live in today, there are things that have emerged as priorities for us based on the needs of our community. So one of the things that we have been doing quite a bit of are power of attorney clinics, where parents can sign documents that would make sure that their children are taken care of in case something happens to them and they cannot take care of their children anymore. So we do a lot of those. Those are done in partnership with community organizations that request our help with those. We utilize a great number of pro bono attorneys to do that. Again, the Hispanic Bar, some of the other voluntary bar associations have really jumped to the front to help us with those clinics. Again, this is an expansion of what we've done over the years, and this particular topic has been of critical need in our community, and one that we are doing our best to meet, and that is completely because of our pro bono volunteers that were able to do those and provide those clinics. Will's Clinics is another high priority for us that we get a lot of call for. So I think for us to have all the clinics, that's where we're having a lot of the need. We also are seeing a lot of need for guardianship attorneys, guardian advocacies, which a lot of attorneys don't know about or don't practice in that area. But we have a program in-house that does them, but the need is so great that we are training attorneys to do guardian advocacies, and we get a lot of guardianship calls. Probably family law is not our biggest need at the moment. Of what we're seeing coming into our office, we're seeing a lot of consumer guardianship, probate, and the advanced directives as well. So that's kind of where we're seeing the shift. I remember when we had the mortgage crisis and we had all of that going on, and that's just I have a feeling that may come back again with things going on, but at this point, really, we've seen a shift towards the other things, the things that the reptile group are well versed in.
Yeah, and I think the bankruptcy is something we've seen statewide, just in talks with other programs too. And I think it's going to continue to grow, unfortunately. There have been some really interesting articles just within the last week or two about the impact of the tariffs and of the economy in Florida. And it goes into the indebtedness of the average household, and it's like one of the highest in the country. So I think we're going to continue to see consumer be a big thing. It's interesting you mentioned guardianship, because we get them, but we don't have the capacity to do them internally, and there aren't enough attorneys. And so the need is there for sure. But unfortunately, I think there's been so little services around that for so long that they're not always coming through. And so I think, kind of, if you build it, they will come. So that's something I've wanted to do for a while, but we just hired somebody recently who has done some guardian advocacy, or is doing some guardian advocacy on staff. And I've been talking to some guardianship folks, but I think that's interesting that you're getting so many of those. But it makes sense when you put it in the context of what's going on. That's great.
So we're seeing all these changing needs, and we've heard
Yeah.
estate planning, bankruptcy, consumer, mortgage. We're seeing all of this, and I wanted to kind of tie this to one of the questions in the Q&A from Randall Reeder, which is, how do you keep abreast of recent changes made by the legislature, the executive branch, the appellate courts, and we can tie in a lot of different changes and needs and different laws, and this, I guess, ties into training. So how do you handle all of this, in particular when it comes to recruiting pro bono volunteers and keeping them informed with all these changes?
I'll jump on that first. I'm fortunate with my involvement with the section in the legislative committee of the section. I have access to a lot of information and tools that keep me informed on a daily basis of what's happening in Tallahassee. So I have a first knowledge of things that are being filed, bills that are being filed, trends that are happening in Tallahassee. And I besides those tools, I really watch the news. I mean, I keep on top of what's happening, as much as sometimes I don't want to. Every day I'm watching the news and I'm trying to get information about what's happening in the world, because it trickles down to us. What happens on a federal and state level comes down to us, and to be informed, I think you have to have your head out of the sand, and you need to be listening, because it's going to eventually, and I'll send emails out, hey, this got filed. Has anybody heard about, this lawsuit that's happening regarding this type of a case? And just trying to, we don't have any designated person, it's just sort of been me. But we definitely try and keep on top of what's happening, and being involved in a lot of different organizations as well. I think you get information through those means as well. Samantha, do you have any other way that you're gathering the information?
Those are the big ones. I serve on a lot of committees and organizations, excuse me, and I keep a Google alert for pro bono in quotes. So I get daily notifications about any time that pro bono comes up anywhere in the world, basically. And that's why I get a lot of good ideas from there. I'm not gonna lie. For me, one of the great ways to be involved is through my engagement with organizations that support my work. So the Florida Pro Bono Coordinators Association, which was mentioned earlier, and the National Association of Pro Bono Professionals. And through those, I've sat on some statewide or national committees that have kept me informed of stuff, but also just connect me with people who have different resources than me or have different connections. And so, depending on the topic, I might get a lot of information from Kim because she has, her connections with family law, for example, or reptile. But for another issue, I might get them from, my colleague who's in New York City or my colleague in Los Angeles. So I try to stay connected to the pro bono community nationally and find out what's going on. And I've, probably weekly conversations with folks about what they're seeing about, right now we're having some reductions in force that are happening at legal aids across the country, a lot of funding issues outside of Florida, and, read. It's a lot of reading. And I agree, you don't always want to do it, but I do think it gives you kind of a leg up in understanding what's coming down the pike.
And speaking of leg ups, one of the main takeaways last year, we created a listserv. We called it Leg Up. This was Lynn Drysdale's idea. So I had to give her a lot of the credit. And we were coordinating. We were keeping track of specific bills. We were focusing on consumer tenant bills. We had some of the Housing Umbrella Group people there. We had a lot of PILS members there. We had a lot of NACA members there. And we were just sharing information as it came in. It's impossible to track thousands of bills that sometimes don't go anywhere. But we were in a position to, as soon as we knew these bills were going to go into effect, we were able to have trainings ready. Most recently, we had a training on flooding disclosures. Like, I'm still sure a lot of people don't know about flooding disclosures, but how that law has changed in the last few years, and we had percentage from Bay Area. So from one of my main takeaways from this panel has been those relationships, being part of these volunteer organizations. It really goes a long way with helping to keep track of all these changes. There's just no way. And doing it in the pro bono field where you have so many areas of law that you need to worry about, that's kind of mind blowing that you're able to accomplish this. Samantha?
But I just want to tie too. Again, we cannot overstate the importance of those relationships. We have a really great relationship with a representative who covers part of a state representative who covers part of our service area. She notified us of a change in a bill that affects our clients, and this is a change that went into place this year that now requires all school volunteers, including sports athletic volunteers, to pass a level 2 background check, and it's having a huge impact in the community that she's in. And so, it flows both ways when you can actually have legislators contacting you and saying, hey, my constituents are reaching out. Can you come and do a presentation? Can you come and do a clinic? And I just, kind of like what Kimberly said with voluntary bars, I cannot overstate the importance of working on those relationships and building that trust with people who can give you a heads up when something's coming, or be there when it hits sometimes.
Right. So let me see where we're at. Okay, so I'm really glad we got to this point because we have a few questions in the chat. I'm gonna go back in order the ones that we have in the Q&A. This one came up when we were discussing ideas and events, and one of the questions was, what about golf tournaments? I'm a terrible golfer, so I don't know about you, Samantha or Kimberly, if this has been successful, but any other idea? If anybody else has any ideas that they want to drop in the chat of type of activities that they found that work, feel free to share with the rest of us. So,
We do a pickleball tournament. That's our new thing is pickleball. So I guess we have no golfers at Three Rivers, but we definitely have some pickleballers.
Our office does a golf tournament. We just did it last week, and it was very successful. And we get the bar, the lawyers in our county are very supportive of us, and they come out and we had a great golf tournament last week. A couple of our voluntary bar associations do events at these, I call them putt-putt golf, but that's not right. They're the shooting place with golf balls.
Driving range.
The driving range, that's the word I'm looking for. At the driving range, which is a fun activity. So yeah, Southeast Florida, we have quite a bit of golfing. Some of the other voluntary bar associations have golf tournaments as well that we can participate in too. So
one of my favorite fundraisers I've ever attended or been part of, I did in New York, and we solicited stories and poems and songs and letters from our clients or other incarcerated individuals. And then we partnered with a local theater troupe who did a one night interpretation of those. And that was always, it was a community facing event. We wanted the community come and learn more about what incarceration looks like in America. Family members of our clients or of incarcerated contributors would come. Our state senator would come, our mayor would come, our volunteers would come. We did all of our awards at that event. And one year we actually served Nutriloaf, which is it's called the punishment food that's used in prisons, and that was what was there for the cocktail hour, because you had to have prison food, and people found it really powerful and impacting. And we actually had a formerly incarcerated individual who has gone on to act and been a consultant on the Escape from Dannemora film that was done on Netflix, or miniseries, and wonderful person. And he came and just talked about how impactful it was to see like civilians understand what some of these things were like. And so I think those community facing events are really fun, and they're great ways to get fundraisers involved, because they're different, right? And so, I encourage people to think outside the box when it comes to fundraisers, because you can only go to so many luncheons and golf tournaments and galas and all, panels and CLEs. Like, anything that can be fun and different, I think has a little bit of shimmer to it, because we're always trying to bring in more people.
You mentioned funding, and I want to tie that to one of the other questions that's in the Q&A, but it also got me thinking with different ideas. We have the World Cup coming up. We don't know what's going to end up happening, what city's going to end, if it's going to be played in. But a few years ago, during the last World Cup, we did this internally. We had like a tournament, like similar to the NCAA tournament bracket. We just did it for the World Cup. And I was all confident that I was going to win. So I offered, I'm going to pay lunch to whoever, to whoever beats me. But I was destroyed. Teresa, I don't know if you're here, but if you're here, congratulations again. I did finally take you to lunch afterwards. But it was a really fun way to connect with colleagues. I can totally see this with pro bono volunteers, and it's just a great icebreaker to get them to talk about their teams. Or if it's somebody like Teresa who chose the teams based on the colors of their flags, and she still beat me, that makes for a great story afterwards. So kind of bringing back up to funds and funding and grant opportunities, one of the questions is, what is the best way to get grants? So that's always a challenge. So how can you bring that up? How do you ask for money? How do you get grants? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Partnerships. I think the more you work with community partners, the more you can find grants that come up. It certainly helps to have a grant writer or somebody who's dedicated towards grant development. A lot of the grants that we find are for specific areas of practice and may not allow so much for overhead or administrative expenses. So I think there's always some challenges with mission creep or just overcommitting. But community partners are a great way to find out about. There are some grant service programs, and philanthropy websites that have a lot of that stuff, but a lot of them are paid subscriptions, and there's a lot that may not be appropriate for legal aid. I will say, in Florida, we're very fortunate with IOTA. We have a really great supportive program within the FFLA, and that's been very helpful. But yeah, I think a lot of partners have grants, and I also would encourage people not to underestimate small grants. You can do a lot with 10 grand. You may not be able to do everything you want to do, but you can do something, and you get in there, you show the value of the service, you show the effectiveness of the service, and that 10 grand turns to 15, and then it turns to 30, and then it turns to 50. So just thinking, again, creatively and strategically about those, especially the smaller amounts.
All right. And I wanted to kind of point to some of the comments in the chat from earlier on. When we were having the discussion about paralegals and copying the paralegal, I've used that with opposing counsel in the past, but Lisaida commented that that's a great point. We tried to get their paralegals or legal assistants contact information. That way we can CC them on the emails as well. That helps the attorney and us a lot. Establishing relationships with the staff is key to successful communication. And we have an amazing question in the Q&A that when I saw it, I'm like, ooh, and I want to make sure I bring that one up. And let me bring up my Q&A here again, because I want to make sure I read it out loud. So this question is from Cecile Schoon, and her question is, can legal services attorneys or staff research a client's criminal record to help them learn if they can vote if they can have if they have a felony conviction. Is there any prohibition against this? I understand that there may be some limits on actually going to court for this. So I think one way to rephrase this is we check court records, we identify a client's need, whether it's a criminal case, maybe they need help with an expungement. It could be other issues, evictions, or maybe family law cases. So we go to court, we check the court records to identify the need. Can we solicit? Can we reach out? What outreach can we do to assist those potential clients? So any thoughts on this, Samantha or Kimberly?
I don't I don't know of any restrictions that I've ever seen on us looking up somebody's criminal or civil court cases. We do that on a regular basis. For instance, I do name changes, so we have to see if they have, do they have any other civil cases that are family that would have to, make it a unified family court case. They also have to do a background check, and I will oftentimes, if they say, well, I've had an issue, I'll go in myself and pull up the criminal record just to see what it is. I don't know that there's what you do with it from there may be, especially maybe with LSC programs. I'm a non-LSC funded program. There are some restrictions going on with the IOTA money, but we still have places in our office that are funded by other sources that are free of the restrictions of IOTA or LSC. So I would think for our purposes, there wouldn't be any issue in trying to or researching a person's criminal history. Samantha, how about you guys?
Correct. There's no restriction on the research or assistance as far as advice and services go. Legal services or LSC funded organizations cannot represent someone who is incarcerated. We can provide advice or a brief service, but we cannot represent them. And we cannot do voter registration work. So, but a lot of programs do restoration work. So that is possible. I would say, just thinking about the programs across the state, I think one of the issues is just having the staffing to do it, because it's not a core function for a lot of legal aid programs, whereas like housing, consumer, family, probate, those types of things are really core. But yeah, there's no prohibition against the research part for sure. And it would only be against the representation if the person was still incarcerated, which probably means that they're not eligible to have their rights restored anyway, or if it involves a registration element. So it's just something that, the individual program would have to look at and see what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, and it's been a while. I used to work for an LSC program. There's kind of a combination you look at ethics rules, but also the LSC rules. There's some leeway for the legal aids as nonprofits when it comes to doing certain things because they're not charging for services. So there are some exceptions that apply. I know during COVID, I believe LSC had some new rules when it came to solicitation, possibly allowing, I think it was text messaging, alerting people that were facing evictions, alerting them about the eviction. And there was like, I'm a legal aid letting you know that you're being evicted, but there was so much that you could say in that communication. So I guess something similar could apply to these circumstances. And I had a project a few years ago. I called them my eviction minions, which is basically I had a lot of law students that would volunteer for me. I would train them in evictions and how to navigate court records. And they would go through every single court record and they would capture all of that into a form and it would effectively give me a landlord naughty list. Now, I had the worst landlord filers in Orange County, and I knew who they were. It really helped out with outreach because I had addresses, I had zip codes, so it allowed us to do strategic outreach close to those buildings. If I could search, okay, we have a client that already lives in that building, so it's going to be a little bit easier to get in through the door. So it's almost like we're vampires. We have to be invited through the door to be able to get in. But sometimes looking at these court records, I don't think there's anything against looking at the court record. It's public record. So how can we use that information to identify trends and needs and allocate resources? And I want to share some things that I've seen from the chat. I know Lena Hopkins with Community Legal Services started posting most individuals cannot vote because they owe fines and fees. And In Orange County, we work with FRRC, and they have an agreement with the state attorney's office and judiciary to convert fines and fee to community service hours. We have a successful program doing the same, and I love seeing these type of programs. If any of these organizations that are here have these type of programs, always feel free to share. I'm the type of person that will help spread the word. And I have Christy Bagalow posting that I believe LSC programs can assist people who are incarcerated as long as they are not litigating the conditions of incarceration. So I only know this because I wanted to help incarcerated veterans with benefits when I worked with an LSC program. And this kind of goes back forth with the LSC and non-LSC. It's always helpful to know who's the non-LSC organization in your area. That's one of the reasons that I kind of brought up that map. We cannot always assist every person that comes to us, but whether it's a conflict, there could be a restriction, and that's where partnerships and relationships go a long way here. So um, there was one example that I wanted to bring up from earlier, Samantha. You mentioned like calling people, and I asked about like the all you can eat and the buffet and everything. But one of the people in the chat was Ronald Mondello. He actually messaged us separately, and this is a great example of if you ever have a client who has an immigration issue related to crime or immigration, I'm not going to waste my time posting or sending emails to other people. I will probably reach out to Ronald Mondello first, right? So it's just that's probably one of those examples where who do we reach out to? So do you want to add on to anything of the either Samantha or Kimberly to any of the discussion that we've been having here?
I do just want to flag one thing that you mentioned, and I love the eviction minions. If if I had them, I would use them. Students use students. They're fantastic, and they can do so much. And they love the Sherlock Holmes aspect of expungement cases and driver's license cases, and going in and doing court records, and just don't underestimate. I mean, with good supervision and good training, students can do a lot to lighten your load. They can make it heavier, no doubt, but they can make it light. And I just, it's 4:22, and we were slated, I think, to go an hour. Is that right? An hour and a half? Okay, we're
Yeah,
gonna say
we're
an hour
like
and
an
a half,
hour and a
but
half, so we're good.
okay. I mean, the fact that there's still 83 people in here, I just want to thank you all so much for hanging out and participating and being engaged, because there's clearly interest in this. And I'm going to speak for Kim. I think I can do this, is reach out to us with questions. We are always happy to share. We are always happy to talk pro bono, and always happy to steal a good idea. So don't think this is the end of this topic for either of us.
Yeah, I'll share Samantha's and Kimberly's contact information. I'll also share Andrea's. Andrea, so you're not off the hook. As I said earlier, Andrea has a lot of great information to share. So I do want to share with everybody this is the information for the webinar that we have coming up next week. If you're on our listserv, you should have received the registration email. But this is just another example of when we tie this to pro bono and volunteer work on how there are other resources, and if we're not aware of them, we can identify and use these resources. So we're gonna have this webinar next week. Feel free to register for it, and don't miss out on it. And here's the CLE code. This one of the reasons that we have an hour and a half, and it kind of led to the bar approved this for 2 general CLE credits, 1 technology credit, and 1 ethics credit. So it feels like I was telling Samantha earlier, we spoke earlier, and I'm like, hey, if you let me, I can go on for hours. Samantha said she can do the same. So I kind of want to take this opportunity to thank both Samantha and Kimberly for joining. I knew this was going to be a great panel, and they were going to have a lot of great information to share. Andrea, you're on for the next one. So thank you everybody that joined us. I know it's not easy to do a webinar that's more than 1 hour, and we did it a little bit different. We did it at 3 o'clock. So I wanted to thank you all again, and I'm going to read the CLE code out loud just in case. It's 251348ON. In the email that I'll send out, I'm going to include a folder with the materials that include a copy of these slides. I will also include all the flyers that both Samantha and Kimberly shared as well. I'll try to put some of these links in there as well. So want to remind everybody, I call it pro bono month. I don't know if is it pro bono month or is it pro bono week?
It's technically week, but it really needs to be like pro bono season, I
Yeah,
think.
that's a better fit for
Yeah,
me.
September to
Pro bono
November,
season.
Every week's pro bono week.
Exactly.
Just saying.
There you go. And it's that I think this is even more amazing the reason that you guys are here because I know how busy you must be. Like I was like, I want to have a webinar during Pro Bono week. So I really appreciate you taking your time from your very busy season. I know it's a very busy season. So even though every week is Pro Bono week. So thank you everybody that joined us. I guess with this we can wrap it up and have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you, Samantha and Kimberly.
Thank you. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.